by our speech therapist as the authority in this field, has some very clear, I can share with you from the ASHA website, very clear to distinguishing of that virtual teletherapy can be very, very effective with the correct, that when applied in the right way with the appropriate candidates. So it's not like Superintendent Khan said, it's not a blanket statement that he made that is good or it's bad. There are some students for whom it is absolutely not appropriate. There are some students or clients or folks that need speech therapy that absolutely benefit from virtual speech. That being said, our priority is always and will always be to hire internal staff, to have people in place, to have relationships built, and all of those things. And because it is legally mandated, it is our obligation, if we don't have a person that is there in the flesh providing the service, to have a legally defensible and backed by data and research practice in place to support and to be intentional about where we deploy virtual speech services.
And I think that's my only hesitation, that like, I agree with you, you know, having the right support with the right candidate to be able to offer and see results in the services actually, you know, do its purpose. But I also believe that we hear every board meeting, something that has to do with, hey, this is not working for my child. And are we using it as that we can't provide a person in, so now you're just doing it, so we're checking off that box, not knowing that these students might not be the right candidates, knowing that they're not receiving the appropriate services, but we're just basically, we're giving you what's mandated. And I think that's my conviction, that if now we're saying we're moving in a direction of like, hey, the oversight's gonna be there, we're gonna ensure that we are serving students adequately, so the resources are giving adequately to the right candidates. That might work, but if we're just using this across the board without students that can't benefit from the service, that's the problem for me. And are we, like I said, using this as that checking the box to, we're giving you services, even if it's, you know, virtually, even though you're not the right candidate, because, hey, we don't have any other options for you. So that, I think that's my concern with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, because I haven't seen a really great plan for recruitment of SLPs. It makes me feel like if we have that in place, would we need to contract out? Because we haven't seen a robust recruitment of that. Francisco?
Just wanted to add it, you know, there's plenty of SLPs in our district who would be willing to take on the additional work if needed, while we're still putting in, you know, these positions. So I don't know how many 1.1s or 1.2 we have working right now. Not everyone's gonna want to say, yeah, I'll take it, but there's a lot of folks who probably would want to take on that work. So we wouldn't have to do a virtual SLP plus the para. And it's our in-house employees and it's people who already are working on our sites. We're already doing the work in the meantime while we're still trying to recruit folks. While the need is there. So I don't know how long or, you know, how that's been contemplated. But that's all, thing else that was scheduled.
So possibly not necessarily a reduction to the contract, but as we did last week, shifting that over to personnel and to salaries. And then if we're not able to find adequate staffing, we move that back. Again, my worry would be, we have a current contract coming back in the fall to say, and we need more, is gonna be a challenge. But I would feel comfortable with that. I also want to be mindful of how we're budgeting. And if we're cutting something, knowing that we're gonna have to bring it back in the fall, when we will have less bargaining power and less kind of leverage at that time. We should be mindful of that. I don't know if we're gonna be able to necessarily hire recruit on April 30th and into May, SLPs to replace positions that we are reducing contracts. So I feel like we're gonna be back in the same place of, we're not serving kids adequately at the start of the year. And then we've got to then scramble and look for contracts to get people in those positions. But I hear what you're saying about a recruitment plan for specifically for SLPs. That is something that we can work on, but approaching that at the end of the school year is gonna be a challenge. Once, now that people are on contract for next year.
How many interns do we have?
How many speech interns we have? I'll check with Jocelyn. I believe we have 3 or 4 this year.
Okay, well, and I think that utilizing our speeches, and one thing that I've had heard from our speeches is that they are well connected with programs. Well, maybe they could be also part of the solution and hiring. They could be part of the creation of a plan with HR.
I'm sorry, who's the, I didn't hear the they is.
Like our speeches themselves being part of the solution to try and recruit, right?
And they do by supervising interns, that's a year-long commitment. So they support it that way. Oftentimes our interns do apply to stay in the district. And then I know that several of them have connections, either with speech therapists, in other areas, or directly. Informally, or more.
And can interns provide services similar to how psychology interns provide services?
They do, yeah. They can't write reports to others, but they're
They
providing
provide services,
being supervised by.
okay. So if we have more interns, we'll be able to serve more students, not necessarily have all the reports, but we could serve those students.
Correct.
Okay, so I think the suggestion from superintendent, even though, you know, I'm a little uncomfortable with the suggestion, but suggestion nonetheless, I think it's one that I think makes me feel comfortable. So switching the 223 from the contract to the 2000s for our creation of the budget. So this wouldn't be obviously a saving, to your point, or just a switch from the contract to internal. And then if we're unsuccessful in hiring someone for this position internally, we're gonna see a reflection of this change to the 5,000s in the first interim. Since we'll need to contract that. Are you comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. But then we're gonna retain the contract for the 6 years. Okay, we can move to the next one.
So next one is transportation related. I want to give an update from last week. I was asked how many students are for first student. There are about 680 students who ride a bus on first student, and about 160 who ride first alt, which is under that same contract. So 840 students, for those. The next one, Gurdev Singh, Tractor Transport. This is the provider of transportation to our students who attend non-public schools. Some of these are very far away. I think California School for the Deaf is maybe our furthest away. And this is daily transportation to Fremont, back and forth for students. We have non-public schools in Concord, in San Mateo, in Marin County, etc. So each of these students is transported much farther, and so that's what this transportation service provides. First off is the local transportation.
So it's $3 per mile, not necessarily an hourly rate, it's more of a.
Correct, but again, some of them are very far away.
Okay, so I'm just gonna ask a question and then I'll probably just move on, so. There's no alternative to this, correct?
That's correct.
Like we have to do that, okay. I'm gonna move to a vote, how does everybody feel about this one? I'm sorry, I'm rushing us, but it seems like it's one of those that there's nothing else we can do about it, right? Yeah,
Is this for one student?
no, this is for various.
There's multiple students.
Do you have a number? Rebecca?
I'm looking at, each student looks like it's a page, it's 20, so about 24, 25 students. And they vary in daily rate based on short.
I think, Shanae,
Thank you. I just want to clarify, this is in addition to first student,
That's correct.
separate? Okay, just wanted to make sure. Thank you for clarifying.
Our first student with the English, that is a EDO class.
You guys, don't forget to talk louder, so we can put.
Yeah.
Translate.
Last week, we were talking about the EVO buses. And if a first student has a green bar on it, that is like electric bus, basically. So. Although several.
Okay, so I saw Kim, yes. Yes, yes, okay, and those, see, except Ellen saying, okay,
Yeah.
Keep.
Yeah, sorry.
Keep, okay. Let's move to the next one. Communication.
They provide, speech services, for deaf and hard of hearing. Or speech services and EHH.
And this pays for the 3 SLPs on the screen.
Correct.
And I'm sorry, are these internal folks? I'm confused about that, like, are they,
Internal,
like, do they work for us? No, they work for
they're
us.
contracting agency similar to all that we discussed.
Okay,
Uh, Melissa Bono is our speech therapist that supports our EHH program. That individual is virtual. The other two, certain, I know for certain that, the first name there was in person. I believe that the second one is also in person, I will. But it's the same concepts of everything else that we discussed around speech therapy.
okay, questions? No questions, okay, and any comments? Okay, superintendent,
I think that we should maintain the. Are these folks who, I mean, these folks who are long-standing?
Melissa Bono has been working with our EHH program, for at least a couple of years since I've been in the role. The other two, I believe, are.
Recommend maintain.
sorry, I do have one question, why wouldn't these 3 people just come work for us? They would make more money and have more benefits, why wouldn't they just? Oh, because one's
One is-
virtual.
One is virtual.
One is virtual, each person has their own, like,
The only reason.
I anticipate, with, like I said, with the new compensation package, I mean, we were already one of the highest paying districts in the Bay Area for speech therapists. I haven't done a comparison again since the compensation package, but we are very competitive when it comes to compensating speech therapists at this point, so. Have conversations with folks that are working on our system.
That was gonna be also my question, have we approached, I feel like maybe there's been a. And this is not for you, about the question, but just like administrators or just people in departments, or like, how can we ensure that people are approached? To share, some of these things, that they could be offered here. And they're doing the work here. Why wouldn't you wanna make more money and get 100% healthcare, right? Like, I mean. I don't know.
I think that's my biggest concern. With many of these contracts. That it seems that we are. you know, we're going through every contract, but we're not looking for alternatives. Right? It's like we need to keep it because we don't have another option, but it's just like, why aren't we looking into all these other options? I think to get us away from contracting out. I mean, you know, just going through it, it seems that even with one of the past contracts, like, why aren't we really looking deep into these contracts and ensuring that, like, why are we paying more in some contracts than others for the same services, and why we're not looking to kind of put them together and, you know, really look deeply into these contracts to figure out how then we can move away from contracting out with so many different contractors. And then, you know, I just think that we stay with things and then we keep doing it over and over, and then we have no choice. So I am really conflicted with a lot of these contracts.
I think we need a more robust recruitment team. A
Yeah,
lot of the things that we're talking about comes back to who has time, energy to put into the recruiting, particularly around these specialized positions. As it is right now, we have one person in our district who is doing the recruiting. And while he does an absolutely amazing job, let's shout out Thomas Scott, he does an amazing job in recruiting, he is also one person. And in the 3 Fridays, a Tuesday, and now a Thursday that we have been together, everything comes back to how are we getting people, where are these people coming from? Everyone who has come and spoken or addressed this contracts committee already has like a full-time job with responsibilities. When are they supposed to build in the time to do the recruiting that needs to happen in order to fill these contracted positions? So, I know there's costs attached to personnel, but I think we need to maybe be a little bit more big picture and look at the ways in which we are or are not. We're shorting ourselves by not having really a recruitment team to address these vacancies.
I think the districts of our size have, you know, talent development departments that are separate from regular HR functions. We haven't pursued that in this district. I think it was a big deal to add the recruiter. That was like, whoa. And again, that recruiter draws on for job fairs and for those things, draws on the rest of staff to availability to be able to support. I think that's something to consider. Understanding where we are financially.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's realistic for us at this time, or if we can, you know, find other dollars, grant. I don't see a lot of HR grants out there. Right. But finding other funding, but I don't know what's available. We can start to look into that. I don't know how we would get to a place of kind of building out. It does require us to pull on both internal HR staff to support that, as well as what I'm hearing is maybe filling in a team of SLPs to start to build out what that plan could look like.
And I wonder if a consideration could be also maybe to create potentially a hiring team, recruiting team for HR and for your office, like if we could offer like a few 0.2s or 0.4s for teachers and a couple 0.2s, 0.4s for vice principals or administrators that are only a few days a week. It doesn't necessarily have to be just a full-time person, but maybe a full-time person, our recruiter can lead that team, but then they can develop like some of the materials that are needed, right? Some of the online work that needs to happen, going to the recruitment fairs.
That raised red flags for me in terms of then getting to a place where we're time carding people or providing a 0.2 interview staff. And I don't think we should get to that point. We're paying people to engage and interview folks. So it just raised a flag for me here. I'm back, like, wait, What does that look like, and what specifically would that mean, look like, what are we talking about?
But I think we also have to be solution oriented when it comes to these things, right? Like, if, next year we go over all these contracts again and we're gonna get the same results of, hey, we don't have enough people applying, is that, what are we doing to, I think, break down those barriers of, it's nice to say, hey, we're gonna bring people in-house. Hey, we're gonna try to recruit. But if those are just words being said, I would rather have the conversation around like, hey, we're not gonna be able to do this because this is not gonna happen because we don't have an effective recruiter, because we don't have an effective department versus, yeah, in the perfect world. So I think it really is about being fully transparent with what we're capable of doing. And we're in the direction that we're going as a district. Cause I think a lot of this it does go back to the hiring. So if we wanna do a lot of this hiring internally, then we have to have a plan to be able to achieve that. If not, we're gonna continue to be in this circle, year after year after year. And the answers are always gonna be the same. We don't have enough personnel applying because we don't have active recruiting, because we don't. So I think, that also has to be, I think, not just a wish list, but an actual conversation of where we're at, what we can afford, and really be transparent with, hey, this is what we have to do, because we have no other choice if that's the direction we're going in.
I'm just saying, like, maybe, say anything, but I'm just thinking of like an unconventional approach. Because speaking personally, I know I'm running into people all the time outside of work that are, if I mention that I work for West Contra Costa, or if I'm running into a young person, they will ask about pathways in. Or, you'll talk to somebody and be like, this would be the perfect candidate. And jokingly, I know we talked about, like, for those of you that go to church, oftentimes are like, here's a little information. Maybe we need to be very thorough. Maybe internally we need to know, or each department needs to understand the pathway to invite people in. So if I run into somebody that I have either like a little document, or I have a QR code, or I have something to say, hey, we want you to come right there on the spot, because I know how to pass out my card to like a bunch of different folks and they go through the process. Like, maybe the hiring process is not relegated to just HR, like we are HR, we're out there supporting, because you run into people at church, you run into them at the hair salon, you run into them at the grocery store. Like, really being outreach around, hey, we would like for you to come, and having like a clear number of steps that people take. Here's exactly who you speak to, if it's special ed or if it's whatever department it is. Because we don't necessarily have the additional funding, but we all know, each department knows what it is that we need. So maybe it's homegrown in terms of how we solicit first.
I think that's excellent. Yes, but we are all HR.
We are all teachers, we are all HR.
I'm also wondering, even that finder's fee, I'm just throwing out ideas.
Sure.
But that finder's fee, we talked about a signing bonus for the employee, but a finder's fee.
Why can't have that?
Yeah. And they get through all the entire process.
We
See,
can't afford
now,
that.
now we're opening the whole. I mean, but that's the thing, before you start throwing out these numbers, right, like even that comment right there, like, hey, that might be a good thing, but then it's gonna be another expense, right? Then is that a cheaper expense than really trying to find somebody to fulfill that position, right? So I think we have what it takes in this district to really move us in that direction, because we're doing the work already, right? Like, and I could, like you said, I agree. Like, I had 2 moms call me last week and said, I need to apply. And I went over to their house and actually walked them through the application process online, because they're not really fluent with computer literacy, right?
Right.
So it's just like, and they had no look at our district office. You know, so it's just like, how do we set up systems where we can be accessible and there is the support to get some of these in the door? Because I think at the door is where it knocks them on their butt right back out.
Yeah.
So it's just like, how do we ensure that these spaces are bringing in the people we're trying to hire?
Okay, we're gonna go
Pedro.
Pedro and then I'm gonna move us on.
I have a question. With the application form of the open and stuff like that, we get a ton of resumes. Have we looked at those for other positions, other openings that we have, that may not be the one that they applied for? But it could be giving us a new source of people by just looking at what they can do.
I know that we do that, particularly at our job fairs. We have a job fair coming up. Where someone is, and I've witnessed it, someone saying, well, you know, maybe this or maybe that, and we do provide that kind of counseling support of how about this, or why don't you pursue this? I know that we do that. Whether we are evaluating kind of cold resumes, someone has applied for HVAC, and really they have the requirement that they may meet the requirements for a gardener. I don't know to what degree we're doing that work in terms of kind of rerouting people to positions. That does happen more so in those face-to-face moments. But that is something that we consider.
It's just a source, as I said.
Yeah.
When I tried getting into the district, I applied for a position that I was qualified for. But until I actually applied for a sub-custodian, I never got called. It was always, thank you, but we throw somebody else.
Okay, great conversation, definitely, you know, we need to obviously continue if this is a pattern, but, when it comes to this contract specifically. For the the 3 speech pathologists, let's move to, did you share your position on it? With them?
Study.
That is the,
Please speak louder.
this is the, yeah, this is it, it's, wait, no, I'm sorry, 650. No. Yeah, 532 for communication works,
Yes, for these 3.
for those 3 speech pathologists.
It would be the same. Oh, I think I spoke to this like 20 minutes ago.
Yes.
I would say to maintain those contracts for our students.
Okay, labor, how do we feel? Eliminate. Christine, you're the only one left.
And I would just caution, so one of them is someone who is providing very specialized support and services for DHH.
Right.
And I don't,
That's
we
the
don't
last
have
one.
that internal.
That's the last one, right? That's
I would caution us before we say
that's Melissa Bonner.
eliminate.
Her part is 152,000, but the contract is 532 for the 3 speech pathologists.
And it may be, or we eliminate if we're looking at that shift to the 2000s. Eliminating is gonna put us in a situation where we're scrambling to still look for those contracts.
Is that different
3
from the
months,
other
4 months
speech
from now?
pathologists, or is this like one of those contracts where it needed to be filled right away, and so?
Yeah, so we have. This year, with the need that we had. We've reached out to.
Wherever you can find.
Let me rephrase, not where there's, I get almost daily emails from new contracting agencies. We have a handful that we know are reputable. Prior.
I didn't even.
No, I know you did.
I think we're gonna be neutral on it, because until you have a body, why would we eliminate? But with the caveat that we're making a concerted effort to hire folks.
Are there?
I just wanna lift up a fear that I have with this strategy, is that if we reduce all of, so I'm gonna go back to SPG, for example, and say. Where our contract is limited to $1.8 million. And they say, okay, we can give you X number of speech therapists. And X plus however many else, they're gonna take those other folks and send them to other districts. And so my fear is, this, I get the strategy, what Kim said last week, like got to me to my core, so I'm like, I understand the strategy. And my fear is if we say this is what and we reduce all of these contracts on the front end. And then they send their folks to other places. If we are, one potential unintended consequence, if we are unable to fill these positions, is that we get to August and they don't have the staff because they've sent their staff to Oakland and San Francisco and wherever else. Because like I said, everybody around us is kind of in this same boat. Many are much worse off than we are as it pertains to needing to contract out speech services. I wanna lift up the fear, if we reduce them all, those staff could be diverted elsewhere, people that are working in our district right now. And then we would be scrambling in the fall to find them.
People in our district who know our kids, who've been working with our kids,
Yeah.
whether they're contractor or not, they still are providing a service directly to our kids.
Definitely a risk. Okay, Christine left, but she was the last.
She is neutral,
She's neutral.
caveat that we are looking for internal.
Okay. Okay, so, the president and I, recommend to go with keeping, the 152 for Melissa. And then the other two, the 193 and the 186 will be transferred to the 2000s. I think that we need to do an effort to reach out to these people and explain to them what we offer. All of these people could make more money here and have more benefits than working for this contractor. So I think that they have to just be talked to, directly and see how that goes. We're taking big risks today, and we will. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Ed theory. Yes. Yes.
We didn't do that with the SPG. Do we want to divert 400,000 kids who need special education services or speech language pathology services? Do we want to revisit SPG and shift those funds instead of a full elimination? Do we want to move those funds to the 2000s as well?
We did.
Yeah.
SPG,
SPG was 1.5, we said 1.1 and 400 goes back to 2.
thank you. I just want to make sure, because my notes said eliminate. I was like, okay, thank you.
Yep. But we got that you.
Sorry. Ed theory, bilingual speech, services for students with IEPs, direct assessments, et cetera. So similar, they're the same boat essentially as the last one.
Okay, how many people is this for?
We have,
This is 4 SLPs, 1 SPED, and 1 para.
4 SLPs.
one teacher and one paraprofessional.
So we get more people for cheaper with them than with communication works. The communication works, we were getting 3 SLPs for $532, and with this one, we're getting 4 SLPs, a sped teacher and a para for $460. Five. Why shouldn't we just eliminate completely communication works and hire with them?
Potentially we could. The issue that we have here is this is again in a situation where we did not have personnel. If this, they may not have the capacity, right? And so we get as much as we can from here. If they don't have the personnel, then I have to get it from somebody.
I have a question. So when that happens, so when we're doing these, we're last moment have to now come into this contract and we know that this is the direction we've headed because, we had to pull because we're rushing through stuff. Do we put an asterisk on it and be like, hey, now let's do a little bit more homework so we can actually look into how to combine some of these contracts, because we know we only got into this because we needed to fill these positions. But now we're going through the year and we have time to kind of, hey, where can we now shift this contract into, move it into another one, and how do we combine these things instead of keeping them separate, knowing that we only did this because we were in a tight spot?
I think kind of, synthesizing the comments that you both just made. I think the work is for us to go and review, rates for similar services from each of our agencies. And to, look at the ones that charge a little higher rate and try to negotiate those. Like we've done with the Paris successfully. With ProCare, we were able to negotiate that down significantly based on what other agencies were able to decide. I think that may be an opportunity. So that's actually the note right before you started speaking, that's the note that I just put down, so I think that's. So.
Yeah, cause I know like a lot of these contracts we're not able to eliminate because there's, student support, right? So it's like, how do we now find them and get better use of our finances on the scope of like, what are they able to provide? But I just don't want it to be like we're having these multiple contracts because we had to come into it, but then if this company is able to support us with this,
Right.
why aren't we now merging instead of keeping the two separate? Because that's what we had, what we had to do at that moment. So it's like having the work, being able to push it throughout the year, like having you guys go back in there and I think reevaluating these contracts, because it's not a keep, move, shift, it's just how do we now combine and get the services to our students with better rates so that it is, giving us some type of saving.
Yeah, well, the issue that we would likely find in trying to combine, is that if, say, communication or ed theory only has available to us 3 speech therapists, but we need 7. I'm gonna have to go out beyond ed theory, right? And so I think my estimation is that the most expedient way to get to some savings potentially is to go to the ones that are charging a higher rate and say, I'm getting a better rate over here. Are you willing to negotiate your rate down? Like I said, that was what we were able to do on the Paris side. A lot of these agencies, when the agencies contact me, often it's, I have an SLP who's available for your area. Are you interested in interviewing them? They are scrambling to hire. Because like I said, and I think our superintendent mentioned this earlier, the universities are not putting out enough speech therapists to meet the demand across the state. It's known across, when I talk to the subdirector, they're just not out there. So it's not like in theory has 20 people and we're picking the 3 or 4 that we want from their 20. Does that make sense?
It does, but I think it also gives us like that accountability part, right? Like if we're working with so many outside contractors, when someone comes to the board meeting and says, hey, this is not working for me through the special ed department, it's not a reflection of one company, one program, could be billions of things. So then to go back and figure out who that specific person's working with, what are they doing? So I think it's also that accountability piece of like knowing, hey, we're investing this money here and we want best services, but because it's scattered, it's also that accountability piece that we're not able to then, because from a parent's perspective, you're thinking, the parent program is not working, right? The virtual, program is not working. It might be the virtual program's not working with this company. Over here it is with this other company. So it's also that accountability piece of like, how do we build that trust into the students and families that we're also serving to give them the best support needed, and we're able to pinpoint where, things are happening. Gonzalez, go ahead.
Thank you. I mean, so for these 4 SLPs, they for sure would make much more money in our district. So could we reach out to them? Could we reach out to them to see if they'd be interested in the position house? I keep saying this and I keep looking at you, Dr. Feldman, but I mean, obviously, I don't know if it's your job to do that or it's HR to do that, but I think that we need to do a personal outreach to all of our contractors with the card
doing that years ago. And from what I recall, this isn't widespread, but people were like, no, we'd like to maintain our freedom and autonomy and continue working and doing what we're doing. We can definitely put that out. I worry also about if we start doing that, what will these companies? So that if we're trying to grab their control and they're providing a contract and a service for, what does that mean for that relationship with the vendors that have provided the support?
Alrighty, Cougars, please make sure that you are getting from point A to point B in a timely manner. Let's hurry, 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 and scurry to class. Eighth graders, please make sure that you make it to your class in time before the bell rings. Put those butts in those seats in those classrooms before that bell rings. Teachers, this is a reminder, please do not let eighth graders out on passes during seventh grade lunch. Students, don't ask for them, you won't get them. Estudiantes, un recordatorio que por favor apúrense a llegar a sus clases a tiempo. Estudiantes de octavo grado no van a recibir un pase durante el lonche de séptimo grado, así que apúrense a hacer lo que tienen que hacer ahorita, porque no van a recibir un pase. Apúrense a llegar a la clase a tiempo. Let's go, Cougars.
Sometimes there are non-auditors that are within our contract that don't allow those employees to be hired by the district. Like, for example, Seneca in the agency does have that. And it does really, put us in a situation with the agency that it is not to allow them.
Oh, interesting.
Question about that. I know, the California Attorney General put out a release 2 or 3 years ago saying that non-compete clauses would not be honored in the state of California, so we've told our agencies, like, you can, like, we have the right, they've come down on some of those. My question is, what about when there's, like, the one we talked about last week, where it states, when we agreed to after this many days, this many days, this many days, then there's the fees involved. But my concern, I share the concern with the superintendent that, so SPG, for example, we have 13 people from there. And we recruited 4, and that encouraged them to say, you know, we're not gonna work with West Country Concert anymore. Now we have 9 vacancies. Right, so it's a difficult.
I mean, that's very real, right? It's a little scary. And I think that if there are companies that do that, I wonder if then we can regionally push other districts to be like, hey, this is not a company you should contract with. Anyways, I think that to me, getting some of these people in-house outweighs the fear of losing a contract with them, right? Because seems to me many contractors that we can go with, although not many people, right? But contractors, right? So I just would love to see that a little bit more because
Keeping in mind that the SLP contracts are different contracts. The SLPs require of a number of people. BA, I don't know if it's math, I don't know all the specifics, but there is an element to the environment that an SLP needs to provide and accompanying both contracts, because which are both types of positions in the same manner. I think is not a wise move, because we are talking about, it's not just, there's a limited number, it's limited number because of the directions, of the field work, of the schooling, of the program, of the cost for them, and gone through all of those things. I want to be sure that we're not approaching this issue in the same way, because it is hard to find English language colleges that are able to step into the role. And that's just to be mindful of that, not approaching it with, these are just contractors. There's a lot more that goes into becoming a speech language pathologist.
And I think that's where, speaking to a lot of these contracts, that's where the conversation should go. Because I think we need to also build a plan of like where we're going. If that means we're only focusing on bringing in-house paras this year, recruiting paras outside of every other department, then that should be the goal. I think, you know, right now, my concern is that we are shifting, and all we're doing is shifting, right? When we're looking at like, where do we put the funding? Then knowing that because we don't have a plan, it's gonna shift right back into that contractor side. So it's like, are we doing the shifts that we're doing because they are really gonna be pursued? Or is it just kind of like the sentimental thing of doing it to show that we're doing right? So that's my worry, like, I would rather have these clear conversations over like, hey, that's not, cause if you keep saying this can't happen, then we need to let it go. Right, if in-house hiring for this position is not something that we can handle right now, then we need to let it go and move on. Versus having the same thing of like, hey, I'm concerned, like just say we're not gonna be able to do it, our focus is gonna be here. Or we need to redirect that focus, because I think just having the conversation and shifting, one, we're wasting time. Because we still need to go through all these other contracts, and two, we're just gonna shift and then reshift back. Because it's not gonna happen, and I would rather be totally honest and transparent and say we can't do that right now. Because one, we don't have the manpower, two, because we don't have enough people applying, and make that the long-term goal. Then the back and forth. Like this 2 senses.
No, and I, thinking of timing and the conversation that we're having right now about recruitment for August. I do think that we are setting ourselves up to not have the kids in classrooms, kids in schools to not have the supports that they need in the fall. And I think that we are putting ourselves in a very precarious situation.
And that's why I said, then we need to go look at what's the plan, because I think always running on the precaution of like, we know these are services that are gonna impact our students. But at the same time, we keep staying in this lane because we're not trying to find solutions and shift, right? Like, when do we start that shift? Because we know this is something that we're gonna have to do next year, because also we have to, you know, provide services, right? So if the cycle is gonna continue, like, we also need a plan of like, when do we start derailing into, you know, bringing in some of these positions in-house, or what's the plan to be able to achieve that? Not just, hey, we're having a conversation right now, and then a year from now, hey, this is a priority again, but we're still in the same situation. So it also has to be one, hey, we can't do this right now. Two, this is the plan that we're gonna move in the direction to be able to eliminate some of these contracts or start the shift. Because we can't totally, you know, shift away, but there also has to be solution, merging, right? That's the solution. Let's try to like merge as many as we can into one. So then we're already starting those conversations, but it's like, when do we start derailing? That's my question. You know, moving on to every other contract, because we're so reliant on outside contracts that we're not able to do anything on our own right now. And we need to be honest about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. I mean, I'm worried about the lack of support that we might have next year. And I think that if we are really, if that is our reality and we're being forced to make this, districts being forced to recruit, then I think, Superintendent, you need to bring to the board a request on what you need to make it happen going forward, right? I think if one recruiter is not doing it, then there has to be a solution, you can always do that. I worry, I mean, for you both, this is the first time you're having this conversation. This is my 4th year having this conversation, to be honest, about reliance on contractors.
And when did we start?
And it's gotten worse. So I mean, to me, it feels different, right? Than maybe some people in this room, because to me, every year I've been asked to like, we can't do it this year, right? We'll figure out how to do it next year. And I feel like contracting has actually gotten worse. over time, especially on special ed. So that's just my worry. That's why I'm feeling, why I'm kind of forcing us to switch some of this to the 2000s. Because at what point do we, as the people who hold the district accountable, say, that's it, right? Like, you have to figure out, right? Like, we all agree on what's at stake and the fear, we all share it. But like, that's it, right? Like what is, like, so I think that was just my hesitation, right? Is that like, it might be the first time you're asking me to wait and you're gonna figure out, but you're my third superintendent asking to do that, right? And at what point do I just say, sorry, superintendent, right? Like, or you have to figure it out, right? And I think that that's the challenge that I have is, I think we all agree contracting doesn't help. We all agree that it's necessary, right? But what you're saying, like, at one point, is that actually gonna happen? And like, I don't know, it's kind of the conversation with a newcomer program, right? When is it gonna happen, right? And like, how do we make it happen, right? Like, I've been asking for it for 6 years. So anyways, it just feels like it's been the same ask.
And I get it, that's why I really want us to be thoughtful, right, into like what we're asking, but also be assertive, like, if this is what you feel and this is the direction you choose to, like, hey, we need to move it this way because you've reached that point, right? My concern is that we can't let this go by. I'm glad you had the patience to wait it out another year. I don't have patience, right? Like, I am glad that you sat here and you've dealt with this for the last 4 or 5, I don't know how many years. I don't have that, right? So for me, it's just like, I need you to derail right now. Like, this is the plan this year, and if you want me to go along with this year, this is not the same acts that I want next year. Cause there has to be a plan already on how we start shifting out of these contracts. And because right now I'm being told that, hey, we need to rely on these to be able to give the students the supports that they need. Okay, but we need to have a plan to steer away from this, and it needs to happen throughout the year, not next year when we're having this conversation again. And I think this is a perfect opportunity for our superintendent to be able to produce that plan, because we're all new here, right? We're all new here. We all need to like own it and just, how do we now get to where we need to be as one? So we're not sitting here having the same conversation next week.
So that plan. We could do a short-term plan, which I don't know how much will yield at this time of year. A long-term plan of what we will do and pulling in SLPs, pulling in staff to really look at what are the barriers, what do we need? A look internally at HR, and do we need to expand that? I don't know how or what, because all that is doing is spending down our reserves faster. And so there are, and again, to what degree is the elimination of contracts going to lessen our budget? That may not necessarily be the case. So it's not necessarily a cost savings. It is bringing some work in-house. Yes, we can build a working group. We can build a team who is looking specifically at speech language pathologists and what we as a district can do. If the team says we could probably, bring in 20 instead of 40. That would be a realistic assessment. I don't know if we can get to a point of or a district of this size, any contracts for SLPs. But we can definitely begin that work now. That would impact next year. Again, what does the fall look like if we are without that plan? Or at the beginning of a plan, eliminating people who are actually working in our schools and have relationships with their kids. That part to me, yes, they are a contractor, but they also are a service provider for our students. And they're people that our kids rely on. Not all, some are kind of hit and miss and here and there, but there's a lot of people who have built relationships with our sites, our principals, our teachers, and our families. So, yes, plan can go into place. At this time of year, once people, after, March 15th notices, people then roll into their position for the coming year. And so being able to resign from a position, let's say they're coming from another district. Resigning from a district and coming to West Contra Costa will require them, they could either say no and their contract, their credential is impacted. They could say, we have to wait until we find a replacement. So in terms of timing, this is a hard time to start looking for people. If we're looking at the contracts, we would need to look at the terms of the contract and do that, reach out to folks to see if they're interested in coming to us. And then also putting into plan some kind of a layered approach, also putting into plan who then, who has connections to our universities, who can, what can we do with our interns? Like in most of those folks, because they have been tied to a district, once they finish their program, they end up going to those districts. It's hard to catch them at the end of this process, but catch them in the midst of it. So I'm talking it through, but just sharing with you what that plan would look like based on this conversation and based on my experience in terms of hiring. It's not an immediate fix. It's not an immediate fix. So just to put that out there. And I am concerned about what the fall will look like. Knowing that we are pulling back, it looks like from all of our existing contracts, knowing that I don't see a pathway to filling all of those positions, by the fall, and there would be kids that are not being served. And that's what we need to make sure does not happen.
Yeah, Shanae, I think you're,
I am.
yeah, with your hand up.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, I have my hand up just for a comment on sped along. As we all know that there's not much cutting we're going to be able to do because there is no backup plan to serve the students. But I highly encourage, there's directors, there supervisors. I'm just oftentimes I wonder, how are these things being managed when I see so much work being contracted out? Again, is there any quarterly follow-up? It's just gonna just be an excuse after, every day, every year. We need to service the students. We know that. So my thought process will be maybe focus groups during next year, maybe includes some of the sped employees that work in sped and kind of figure out how we can, start reaching out and retaining and employing people who can do these jobs. I don't see us cutting anything at this point in the sped department because the services are needed. I think it's just not well managed. In my opinion, it's not well managed, and it hasn't been for quite some time now. And I don't know if someone doesn't take accountability to get it together. I don't know if it'll ever get better. So that's just my input on what I see.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Shanae.
Pedro.
Yeah, well, like the superintendent said, August is just around the corner. To be able to hire that many people at this time is not feasible. A couple, yes, but what we do have time is to contact all our contractors to keep the people from the ones that are offering at a lesser cost. Cause there's still time before August to where they can basically get us the people that we need. And saving money by those contracts, by reaching out to them and telling them, look, I'm gonna probably need more people. I'm not gonna be able to hire all these people. But we get them from the cheaper source. Less amount of companies providing different people that have different rules, different guidelines.
Yeah, thank you for
Francisco?
So yeah, building off of that point, you know, we have from now until what, May 15th or so, when y'all have to make a decision on contracts or so, but we have now until June 30th to identify, you know, where have we gone, or, you know, what's IHE we visited, what, you know, programs have we reached out to, what contractors have we individually reached out to, because at least there's a temperature gauge or barometer of what that plan is and where we're moving. Because if we're gonna continue to have like this repetitive cycle, then one, we're wasting time. Two, we're also putting out like, what is it, like whack, essentially, we're just going in the circle. And so, like, have you tried out even, you know, what was it, like maybe 2 weeks or so before the strike? Districts have put out, you know, the sub rate for the daily rate. We can put in SLP case load caps, max of 55. Sped, you know, the new rates for them, the salary standard. So all of that we can try to push from other districts, because that's essentially what they do from us, right? At least we see that like in the summer where we saw Mount Diablo ads, like we can do that too. And see if any of the other districts can do that.
marketing recruitment plan. Okay, looking at the time, thank you everyone for those thoughts. Let's,
I just had a clarifying question for Rochelle before we move on.
go ahead.
You had asked about caseloads. Were you asking about SLPAs or about interns?
Did I ask about caseload?
You said, you asked a question earlier about, does it help us serve more students?
Oh, with interns.
So interns do not, SLPAs do. So when we get a SLPA in, they can take on caseload. Interns are basically working under a speech therapist, but they don't take on a caseload of their own. So I just need to clarify. that.
Why
So
not?
They don't have the credentialing.
Okay, but technically the psych interns don't either, but they do see serve students.
It's a different
Okay.
credentialing process.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the intern is part of their, it's part of their credentialing process, and so. They can take on a caseload once they have gone through that.
So if they're like a third year intern, they can't take a caseload?
I don't believe they do the same for years, too. Cause I'll look into I'll get a better clarification on the full intern process, but I just want to clarify, SLPAs do, they can serve students, they can take on a caseload, they cannot assess or write reports. Interns are just essentially they're learning under a speech therapist, but I'll get more details about that process.
Okay, so let's decide on this contract at theory, labor, how do we feel about this one? It's for the forest piece, I forgot, it was like a teacher and a para. Yes, thank you. Eliminate, neutral,
Neutral for.
sorry, eliminate neutral,
WCCA, so neutral.
neutral, okay.
Yeah.
What's it on my butt?
I don't know, I don't know. I mean, I think that we are getting more on this contract than in the previous one, for sure. For cheaper, I agree with what everybody has said, I suggest we keep it.
To shifting something, okay.
Yeah.
Side.
Okay, I propose we take a break, lunch is about to be here. After we take our quick break, we're gonna do a working lunch. And I suggest we move to Ed Services. The reason why is because Ed Services has a lot of contracts that are, important, but also nice to have, for lack of a better word, not nice to have. Thank you, okay, yes, yes. I think all the sped contract is really more a question about whether it should be internal versus external, right? So I think really robust and good conversations, but I don't think we're gonna finish by next week if we just go straight on sped. So I suggest that we get through Ed Services and then we can go back to sped. Yes,
For sped moving forward, can we start to kind of look at these as a bundle? So that we're pulling together, if it's staffing, so the rest of the NPAs together as a bundle, the NPSs together as a bundle. As much as you can, definitely to kind of group them, so that they're presented as a group, so that we can kind of talk through. We're talking about fundamental questions and issues, and then also looking closely at the contract itself.
I think we've addressed all of the NPAs and NPSs.
I still see Cornerstone, I still see.
the rest are the rest paras only, because then, yeah, we would have,
Yeah.
done it last time.
Sunbelt,
And we did all the MPSs last time, as a group.
it's only,
Oh, of course, I'm sorry.
there's a lot of
Okay,
NPAs,
sorry.
Syntax, yeah, there's,
rates.
Oh, yeah.
What else we could do for that, and then the
Okay.
non-direct services, maybe to group together, so just if we can look at, we can talk about that for Monday.
okay, yeah, why don't you guys talk about it, and then we'll probably revisit it Thursday, we're not gonna have time to come back to it
Tuesday.
today. Tuesday, God, thank you, Tuesday.
Corre Maya.
Today's
Okay,
No.
maybe that's why I keep saying Thursday,
That's the state of the schools, and then
Oh,
you
right.
have, state of the schools, I have an office manager meeting, I have other meetings on Thursday, SSA will not be present.
okay, let's take a break then. We'll be, for people in the audience, we'll be back by 12:05.
Stephen back, yeah.
Hopefully.
So there is.
Okay, everybody, we're gonna get started. Thank you for the patience. We're gonna start with preschool. So I'll pass it on to, Ms. Costa Brazos.
Fine. Thank you, everybody, and I do have my Ed Services team here, and so they'll be chiming in. The first contract that we have listed here is for Learning Genie. The amount is it's about $30,000. Learning Genie is a platform that our school educators use to be able to do family engagement. There's curriculum and lesson planning tools, but really the main utilization of it is it holds the portfolio in DRDP, which is the assessment utilized in our preschool programs.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, any comments? Okay, Superintendent?
This is work that we have to have our assessments. This continues the work that we are doing.
Sure. Union? Vote?
Did this come out of early childhood money?
Yeah, like, well,
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. WCA keep, SA keep. UTR keep. Teamsters keep. Yeah, retain. Okay, we're gonna retain. We can move to the next one.
Okay, so the next item is a book set. I wanna say it's Hobby Hobby. It is in partnership with our preschool special education program. They are a set of instructional materials that span books and wands that allow students who speak different languages to be able to access the book in the language that they speak at home. There's puzzles and flashcards, and it is utilized in both our general education preschools as well as our special education preschools. The contract totaling about $112,000 for the materials and supplies as well as the meeting.
Question? My only question is how many students use this program?
It's utilized across all of our preschool programs as well as our special education preschool programs. So coordinator Landre Ajay as well as our coordinator Shirley Priestley collaborate on it. Make sure every classroom has access.
About 800 students.
Thank you.
About 800 students, thank you. And if we don't had it, if we didn't have this, obviously students wouldn't have the ability to.
Correct. So my understanding is they utilize this particularly during choice time.
Got it. Okay, any additional questions? No, any comments from anyone? Okay, superintendent.
Yes, that's what this.
Okay, labor, let's vote. Okay, unanimous retain, yes, we're keeping it. Yay, we got through one department. All right. Yeah, where would you like us to move next? Curriculum?
Go down the order. So maybe let's do the curriculum. STEM is what it's labeled, but it actually spans many of our departments. So we've got different directors here, but I'll go ahead and start at the top. Our first contract is in the amount of $235,000 for Edgenuity licenses through Imagine Learning. This is a contract that is a site license for every one of our secondary schools, and it allows our students to be able to have access to credit recovery. And it is different than the program that our special education department utilizes. There's a different one.
Subject.
Thank you, subject. And it is a program that we've been using for some time, both during the year and in the summertime.
So it's both.
Yeah.
Any questions? Any comments? We should have food this whole time and
Hey, I had dill pickles. With cookies.
Superintendent,
I think this is something that we need to see.
it's Ingenuity. Yeah. It's credit recovery, so it's Imagine Learning, but it's at Ingenuity.
Yes, that is important that we into the program for credit recovery.
Okay, labor, let's vote. Keep. Okay. Unanimous? Yes. We gotta keep this program. Okay, let's move to College Board.
Great. I actually see.
Oh, I'm
I
so
read
sorry,
yours.
curriculum.
I was like, you
I just jumped right through it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move into the iReady one. So their Curriculum Associates is the contractor that provides the assessment platform iReady. It is a district-wide license that is utilized to assess students in both reading and math. It spans students have the option or teachers have the options of administering it in second grade. However, as you know, we phased it out in K1 and in some second grade classrooms with the replacement of our reading difficulties for screener for the reading component. The license is about $8 per student, $8 for math. Reading is $8, but we get a lower price of $6.40 given the number of licenses. I want to say that under the leadership of Larisha Huffman, is when we brought iReady as an assessment platform. We used to also utilize the learning pathway component, which we do not anymore. Some school sites do choose to do it. It is the only assessment that we have that spans elementary and secondary. Much of the kind of feedback that we've heard along the years is that there's a high investment in terms of instructional time, both that causes teacher frustration as well as student frustration. And most recently, iReady is under heat because of a lawsuit over student data privacy concerns that is currently being litigated. They've asked for it to be dismissed. However, it's still ongoing. However, we do have a data privacy agreement that protects our students that has any software partner has to sign. At this time, we are closing up on an LCAP that really utilizes this as a local metric. And in the past, West Contra Costa has utilized different assessment platforms like Renaissance Reading or STAR, as well as its own district-wide curriculum assessments that we created, for example, benchmarks. So there are some alternatives to discuss should this group recommend that we want to eliminate that $211,000 contract.
And just to clarify, this is not the only area where iReady is shown, right? There's some other areas.
Yes, in fact, we could jump there as well, so you
Sure,
can,
please, that'd be great.
so there's a curriculum associates non-direct services below that is, I think in total about $198,000 that is dedicated professional development. Provided, some of you might have met her, her name is Norisha. Norisha is lovely, however, we have let iReady know that that is not a partnership or a contract that we plan to continue, and it is on expiring funds, which is educator effectiveness, and so we feel like should the district decide to keep iReady, that we've built the capacity within our principals and educators to be able to support the platform. And so for that, we do recommend a termination of that contract.
But that won't necessarily be savings since that money is going away, correct?
Yeah, but
Okay.
for many of these items, we need to identify new dollars, so, I've been working with, Jeff and David, to identify where those funds come from, but we are not identifying dollars for this.
And on the governor's proposed budget, he was proposing to add more PD money, right?
Yes, SSPD, yeah, it's different than educator effectiveness and what it's targeting, but there are additional $100.
Got it. Okay. Questions about iReady in general?
You said it was using guiding for the health map or just here. Or
26, 27, or 25, 26?
So we're wrapping up our latest year of the LCAP, and so we will do a full rewrite next year, and, typically, we should have a local indicator, not just depending on our CAP scores. It was feedback we got from the county in previous years that we didn't have it. However, like I said, there are other years in which we haven't had a software-based assessment. And really, the goal of having data serves lots of purposes. What we firmly believe in teaching and learning is that it should drive instruction, and I think it does for some educators, but many have also expressed that it is not the most effective use of their instructional time. So we've certainly been having conversations with both iReady and with our principals and educators about it. iReady has committed that they are reducing, Sanjay, correct me if I'm wrong, or Saul, about the assessment to shorten and towards about 40%. However, it is also our responsibility in terms of accountability to make sure that there are flags, right, for us district-wide when the data is either indicating that something's really working and we can go see it, or that we're not headed in the right direction so that we can mitigate and support where that's needed as well.
See,
I think the concern is one, that we're using it all the way across to secondary. There doesn't seem to be any real evidence that supports that it's effective in terms of predictive value at the secondary level. And I think even and having sat in a part of the WASP process at Kennedy, that was actually one of the questions that came up, was like, I don't know that iReady is effective at the secondary level. I think in addition to the data breach, there have been a few white papers to address like the efficacy of the program. Some of those have been generated by the publisher, which of course always makes the program look better than it is. I think the outcomes, but kind of trying to find more neutral sources, outcomes are better in math than they are in literacy. And I think, to your point, we've heard a number of principals speak to the time that it takes to actually administer the assessments. So I don't know if it's worth. Oh, and I'm sorry, and this does not replace the reading difficulty screener, which was intended to identify students who might require kind of beyond tier 1, tier 2 support, right? Because tier 1 is, every kid should be getting robust tier 1 instruction. And so that reading difficulty screener was intended to make sure that we are mindful about the tier 1 instruction that we're providing in the event that students need tier 2. So I say all that to say, I don't know that this is the most effective platform beyond K3. And if we're not, and even if we're not administering it to K, like maybe we need to limit, but I don't think it's something that we should continue with secondary. I think it's probably a waste of money.
Yeah, and I would say, I agree with everything you've said. I think that there are some secondary schools, for example, I know that Principal Irby Canol has really found value in the utilization of intervention program and tutoring after school to utilize it, but we're really struggling both with finding the right time to do it, given the periods and how long it takes. We're just losing a lot of instructional time, and it's not giving us that fruitful data that we need to make it worthwhile. There are curriculum embedded assessments that we currently have in the elementary, for example, that could be used. We just adopted 2 high quality instructional materials, Eureka and Desmos, and so we could have district-wide data, at least for on the math side, as well as like Christine said, in the utilizing DIBELS and Lectura for K2. Yeah, and I think one of the things that Sanjay might be able to add here is that we've gotten a lot of pushback from families and students and principals regarding students who are currently assessing and refusing to do so because of the data breach. I don't know if you want to add anything, Sanjay.
Yes, I mean, that just came up yesterday with one of the principals, around parents feeling insecure around their students taking the assessment. And to Christine's point, we had similar issues when we're talking about secondary. We had similar issues, I think anytime there's something that's computerized. I think it starts off well, potentially, and then it sunsets very quickly. And what we're grappling with now is that, and I want to say that it's in our SPED department, like students have figured out like how to use apps, drop the whole thing in, you know, which almost makes me think, are you SPED or have we not? Do we need to take a second look at, like, they really, the intellect or the metric by which we should be measuring students is more around how innovative they've become around not taking the test as opposed to this. And oftentimes just talking to students directly, like, hey, this says that you are second semester kinder, but I saw you drive here, you got a mustache and a goatee and muscles, can you read? And they're like, oh yeah, I didn't know this was important. So I was questioning the data, but at the same time, when do we have the time to put a pause on it and adopt something else Or is that something that we will investigate? I mean, there's a part of it that says we need to go back to, every time I say go back, I age myself, and people start shifting their seats, so I won't say that, but like an actual pencil and paper, like we need to be able to quantify, can students do it? And maybe that's the answer in secondary. Like I have a daughter that's in college and she's like, I've got to go get a Scantron, and I'm just like, they're paying this hard-earned tuition, like why are you using, because the teacher is worried about teaching, cheating, advocacy, like they went back old school. It's been working fine, so I think this is one of those areas where we need to, we have a think tank or really think about what best practices, because in those PAC meetings, we're presenting data, it's always like, this really what this is, especially when you get to secondary. Yeah, you have a question?
Thank you. Pedro.
You mentioned that the district already has its own program for it at the beginning.
So
Now,
we,
with the pushback that you're getting from teachers and administrators and the data breach, it doesn't matter any agreement with data privacy, if they have a data breach, they can get to the stuff. What's the reason to keep going with iReady?
yeah, no, that's a really great question, and I just wanna name that the question is not a data breach, is that there's allegations that they're selling the data about our students, which they of course claim is not happening, and they certainly don't have approval to do that. However, to Sanju's point and what I said earlier, our teaching and learning department stands firm on the practice and the value of using data to drive instruction. The tool that we use can absolutely change, and I think there's enough data to suggest that this is, likely not the best tool for us. We're gonna have some new leadership in place, and so I think it's important that as we consider what's coming next, that they be really taken into consideration about what's gonna happen in the directionality that our superintendent would like to go. But I do think that we have the infrastructure in place to be able to utilize our curriculum embedded assessments to give us the information that our teachers need to drive instruction. And that's what we actually want them to use, right? The assessments about the instruction that they're using, that they're going to use immediately to inform corrective instruction for students. And we do have the benefit of having a reading difficulties risk screener to give us information widely about where more support is needed for students, particularly in foundational skills. And I'll pause there.
Do you want to, it's not something that is in place yet, but do you want to talk a little bit about the potential work that we can do with the county?
Absolutely.
Moving forward, I think that would be helpful in this conversation, but I also want to think through timing.
Yeah.
And what makes sense in terms of if we're pulling the plug, when and how. Pulling it whole without, so not having communicated out that we are, yes, pulling the plug and you're gonna have to, figure out how to utilize your curriculum embedded assessments to support formative instruction and intervention support and all of those things without some specific training for particularly our new teachers, but across the board, our teachers. I think it would put us in a precarious place for at least a year.
And just because of timing, I did want to clarify, I'm pulling it now. So my recommendation to the full board is that we eliminate iReady. So I wonder if you could talk, both of you could talk about, I don't think there's anything you could say to me to convince me otherwise, but just for clarity of the conversation, just because I do feel like as one of the people who approved iReady back in, 4 years ago, wherever, I was sold something that I think has changed, right? I think the piece that people really liked was the piece that we've eliminated, right? The other components of it, which supported the teachers to differentiate and to, right? Which became too expensive and we had to cut 2 years ago, right? And I think that we are just over testing students now, right? And I think that we have heard that, from teachers. I think hearing it from administrators is when I get really concerned, right? Because I think administrators really understand the importance, not that teachers don't, right? But like they see a wider scope of like the data, right? And that's important for reporting purposes, for other, talk to parents and to move their teams, right? But when even principals say like, we have gone way too far in our testing, now we have way too much data, now we have like, we don't even have time to go through our data, that's when to me, it's a red flag. I mean, I of course will always understand that from teachers too, but like, I feel like I never usually hear that from administrators. And now that we are, I feel like we've taken it to the opposite end, right? So, definitely acknowledging what the superintendent said about the county, if you could talk about that, but also maybe in context, knowing that like, this is where it's heading. I don't know if that helps. I know we haven't voted or anything, but like, just for transparency purpose. Yeah.
And I will say that just as many administrators that are out there that are like, nope, this is not the right investment. There are some that are highly invested and we're part of that pilot group. And so I don't want to go without saying that. However, when investment is really important, so investment from our educators, and that should be both principals and teachers, right, and students. And what we're noticing is that investment is no longer in place. The assessment is really long because it's trying to match the learning pathway, which you're right, we no longer utilize. And so some of its value it's extremely lost. I was in the camp back in the day that loved STAR, so it wasn't a choice that I supported at the time, but we're really excited to be, our superintendent just agreed and we just signed with the county. This is gonna impact another contract that's under this category for EduClimber. The county has been trying to support us with creating the infrastructure around data. There's a couple of platforms that work together called EDIS and EduFind that they are offering to us and other CASA districts to support us with both data integration, that would pull data from both the PowerSchool system, the Munis system, to give us data to support errors that we often find in CalPADS, as well as to help us get stronger and easy accessible educator workforce data. It's not yet in place, but it will also have the capability, we hope very soon, to be able to assess students quickly around the standards per grade level in ELA and math. Sanji was part of the conversation with me, and she, as well as other people, including Kim and Nicole, will be part of the next meeting now that we've got the green light from our superintendent, so they can begin to see if this is really a good fit for our district. But it sounds like a really strong platform that's going to help in the gaps that we currently have, bringing the data together so that in a single platform, both through SSTs and in IEP meetings and when we're analyzing data, we can see all of our local assessments, all of our suspension, attendance, and academic data in one platform, so that when we're looking to support students, we're really having a holistic picture. We understand that there's been a lot of investments in other assessments and other platforms, but having both the backing financially of the county as well as the training would be critical.
I think also one piece that I think in my 100-day plan, we talked about building a local assessment platform. This does that that's at no cost to the district. But free, Jeff. Free, all of it. Free. Okay.
There's
no such thing as a free lunch, huh?
No, there's no such thing as a free lunch. We're SAYS and all this because IEPs are not in units or PowerSchool.
No.
So where is SAYS and all of this?
SAYS would not be touched. I'm just saying when we're having an IEP meeting, could pull up this platform so that a family or a team could actually see holistically how suspension, attendance, academic all comes into one.
So how does that change from what they can see in PowerSchool? Then versus having it in units, that doesn't, all of CalPADS is in PowerSchool. We integrated with SAYS, is integrated with PowerSchool. I'm not clear what's the challenge, the change here, and we have tried through the county on numerous occasions to integrate Power School and Munis to complete failure. So I wanna know who's gonna do the work, because we've cut so many positions here, including the person that would have been doing this work in IT. So this is where my challenge is at this point, is how is this work going to be accomplished? And not stress staff out.
Absolutely.
And then you have training on
Yes.
top of it, because then you're going to have all these lovely people have to have training. And the people that are making these decisions are gone.
I think that what you name is really important, and so Power School, Munis, stays untouched, and folks can log in and do what they do there. What this does is it communicates with those platforms to provide one single sign-on where we can identify, for example, where all the errors are coming up in CalPads, and so the reduction of those staff is absolutely important and critical, but this might actually allow us to be able to identify those errors potentially in the absence of having staff that used to do that manually.
What errors is what my next question would be, but I'm very hesitant in this, bless the county. And,
Is this the urge to go out there?
Every educator in there, yeah, all of us were like.
I'm a middle school person, so that's a middle school
Yeah.
conversation
And
right there.
and I apologize that you're hearing about this in this meeting. I don't think we're like ready to
It's
sign.
not
the
it's not
dotted
my
line yet.
position. I'm not looking at my
Yeah.
position.
No, I know.
Understand that. I'm looking at this as the person that is supporting the members that have lost their positions, that did this work and would integrate this work. And now we're bringing it back in, we're bringing something in that's gonna cause the few that are left to do more work. And I'm not understanding how we're logically thinking of this at this point in time. And the people that are making these decisions are gone. There's only one person in this room that's going to remain. And if it failed, that's gonna be on that person, because everybody else is gone. The membership that supported all of this work is not going to be here to do it. So how is it, and what's the time frame to get this done? That's where, I mean, yes, it's a contractual and it's a negotiated event. I get this piece right now. But what are you gonna do? What are you taking away at this point in time? Because you have EduClimber in here, which is a huge cost.
Yeah. And actually,
And-
this is what would replace that, right? And so we're proposing that tools like iReady, like EduClimber are no longer necessary, because now we have this tool that the county is providing us. As you mentioned, I'm transitioning out. I won't be here in the coming years. And so this is why our superintendent is the one making the decision and the investment. We do have some team members that are remaining, and so it would really be an agreement or in our leadership to take this in-kind service that would be provided free of charge to our district, paid for by the county, to allow that integration as well as the professional development. And so I'll pause there. I don't know, Superintendent Platinum, you want to add anything else to it? But having this would allow us to no longer depend on those other contracts that we had under the STEM department.
Well, I mean, a couple of things. But you're here now, and so we're part of this conversation, right? So I think it's like, it's two different things to the way I'm hearing it, but please feel free to correct me. There is iReady as an assessment tool, which we're doing away with. We recognize there's a need to collect and disaggregate, distribute data. And to your point, we have curriculums that have labeled themselves as engaging, rigorous, with built-in assessment opportunities. So at least whatever platform that data lands on, we'd be able to compare apples to apples as hopefully hopefully, for schools that are using CKLA, at least you can have a comparison of the data of schools that are using CKLA, as long as they're implementing the, that's what I mean by
Right,
that.
so Eureka Math is one that, because it's a district-wide implementation.
Yes,
That I would feel confident being
Say that
able
we're
to
getting
use that
that data.
and looking at that,
right,
those embedded assessments to support our students.
right, but I'm just saying, we're
But
talking
yes.
about two different.
Yeah.
Two
I
different
get
things.
nervous when we say, because again, if we're looking for coherence,
Mhm.
particularly around literacy, it will be even more incoherence. And that iReady was a through line, not that I'm not a strong advocate either way, but
Right,
that was a through line. And we're removing that through line in a year when we're transitioning to something new I'm not worrying, you guys, I'm not up all night, but it is a concern.
For this.
right. I guess,
It's a concern.
Yeah.
So,
I guess so yes, I guess in my head, the way I'm processing it is, even if we are moving to greater coherence around the ELA program, the platform where that information will rest will give an opportunity, whether it's this platform that the county,
EduClimber or this.
whatever it is,
Yeah.
will give us an opportunity to do that. So iReady as an assessment tool is what we're saying. If that goes away, great. Since we're looking at free resources, once upon a time, we used those assessments that were available through CAS.
Yes.
Which I have heard secondary principals say are probably more useful to them. Which we can administer multiple times a year.
Yes.
In terms of predicting, SBAC performance.
For interim assessment.
For
For
interim
interim
assessment.
assessments, yes.
Yeah.
However, that is a classroom by classroom decision that's made. So it's not a district platform program that we could say we are all doing this. It's not how our interim assessments are created.
Right,
And so as more classrooms use the interim assessment, absolutely. Is it, again, if we're looking for coherence, and coherence is not necessarily everybody doing the same thing lockstep, but looking at the same information, being able to pull a common language for each of our curricular areas across the district I think it's important for us to be able to truly understand how our kids are doing across the board and what district-wide assessments, what district-wide tier 1 and tier 2, I think tier 1 and tier 2 supports are we able to provide and implement across our district in an equitable manner. That would be the focus. So
it's a question, it doesn't have to be answered now. In the same way that iReady was a mandate to schools, could we not, because mandate for secondary, because the concern around the use of iReady data not necessarily being particularly helpful, is there some way is there a possibility of a mandate around, like you said, in order to build a coherence across the district in looking at data, whether it's interim assessments or not? And so I just want to kind of put that
Yeah,
out
we've
there.
certainly administered the IABs as a district as our assessments in the past. We had similar pushback, right? So the IABs are absolutely aligned to the blueprints of our CAST assessments, and they give actually both educators and students good practice around the tools that they're going to utilize at the end of the year. It tests a small skill set of around standards for each ELA and math. But we would have to really align and say in the past, for example, in mathematics, we did one IAB at the beginning and then the same IAB at the end to see growth. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what I hear you saying, and I agree with wholeheartedly, is we need coherence. We have the opportunity to have coherence in math because we have the same adopted curriculum. We do have an assessment that is really well liked by our educators and that we selected that is high quality around the risk difficulty screener with MCAS Dibbles and Lectura. Many of our school sites actually do it kindergarten through sixth grade, so that's certainly something that the district could consider. But in terms of the information that the district and educators need and have around guiding instruction, I think that there are other resources out there that we could use outside of iReady. I share your concern that as we move into the close up of this LCAP, that it might be helpful to be able to close it out with that data. And, you know, when you have students refusing to take the assessment and teachers refusing to give it, is that data really high quality, right? So.
Let's, Guthrie will be our last speaker, and then, we're gonna wrap up comments and then move to the next one. I think the decision's been kind of made on this contract. We keep going through this whole really good conversations that I think I need to have, right, but perhaps not for our purview, right, but go ahead.
Yeah,
Guthrie.
so I'll try to be very brief, and keep the focus where we are right now. In mind, what I'm gonna say. One of the groups that really had issues with iReady is our school sites. Brought it to me because the issue is that the beginning of the year test showed a much wider gap, particularly for students with disabilities, between their actual ability and grade level. And so it was showing kids were 2 years behind grade level when they really weren't, because of the way it's set up. And so I just want to lift that up on behalf of what was conveyed to me very vociferously by our school site leads at the time. And just to say that I would like for us to be mindful in whatever we choose going forward of that piece and that factor, so that we don't select something else that like you said, gives data that may convey to a parent that their child is further behind or behind the next game. And then I'm gonna just soapbox for 30 seconds if I can. Christine will remember, we were principal and vice principal at summer school at Dayton years ago. And Reverend Shoemake was our scout, and he said, I want to see the reading scores for all of the African American students in the summer school program. And so we got them all for him, and he met with each student individually, and almost to a person, when he said, "You're going into high school next year. Why is your score at first grade level?" I didn't take that test seriously. And then when he spoke to them and said, you know, they're gonna place you in a reading class based on what you did, they were like, I had no idea. I didn't even try on that test because it didn't feel like it mattered, right? And so I think broader, we really need to think about how we message the importance and what we're really doing with this data, and really impress upon our students and really shift our culture. And there are some true practices that we've all seen at schools when they kind of hype up assessment, and not for assessment's sake or, you know, all right, so I'm way past my 30 seconds, but it was a profound moment. Christine remembers it, I'm sure, and Reverend Shoemake, what's that story, I'm sure.
Thank you for that. I mean, I think that what everyone said is everybody's experience here, I think, to some extent, right? I think testing is such a tricky thing because data can be so powerful for us to dig deep into the concerns that we have as a district. And I think also for families to see, but I think that to your story, Dr. Fleshman specifically, right? Like, I think a lot of students are just not taking testing seriously, right? But that's a problem for us too, because since families choose to come to our district because sometimes test scores, right? If we only have the state test scores to show families for them to look at, then that's a concern to me, because I don't think a lot of people would choose to come to our school simply because of our test scores, right? But I know our students and educators don't care about state testing, right? Like well, not all of them. I never cared. I think a lot of people didn't care, right? But I think that we have to be able to show data to families, be like, well, actually, our students are doing much better than what this reflects. Let me show you how. Like, you should choose our schools, right? We're doing amazing things. That's not a clear reflection. And there are many reasons why, like we just heard today. So I do think that we need some local data, but I also want to lift up the concern that we're hearing from educators that there's just so much testing that we're actually hurting students because there's less instructional time because there's so much testing. So then our students specifically really need more instruction, right? Like, we all, I think, know that. So I think I also don't want us to switch iReady for another test that is also not going to be taken seriously, it's just going to add more time. to students and to educators. And I wonder if we could look at what we're already doing and leverage what the county is giving us too. Because I don't want to just add a test just to have the data, right? Like, I don't think that's helpful either. Ultimately, if we need testing, it should be to support schools and educators and not just for us on the board to, or like wider communities be like, look, how bad are we doing, right? Like, we heard yesterday at the board meeting, like, we already know we're doing poorly, right? That's not particularly helpful for us as educators. Like, we need tools for supporting instruction. But anyways, I mean, so for this specific contract, the next one, I agree, we should eliminate, and then that gives time.
May I? Really quick.
Sure.
But I sit in two places, instruction, and I also work directly with the Office of African Americans Community, and we are catching fades. I cannot tell you how we're getting beaten up in that department around how we're holding, how we're being accountable around African American students in particular, and then just crossing over to, you know, district-wide, what is impactful, or what do we deem important? And I'm not here as the irate spokesperson per se, but I do know that it is incumbent upon the person, not the tool, to make sure that students do, you know, test doesn't test by itself. What I'm concerned about is that we are already in a situation where every school is nuanced. Like, you know, I'm switching hats, like I think every time I make a presentation, because you all typically ask, like, how does this affect the whole district? Is this something that everybody has? And almost every school is a unified school district. And the expectation has not changed in terms of the community, what they expect, what the county expects, what the state expects. And we sit in spaces and make decisions based on maybe our own comfortability or what we like or we don't like, but we don't replace it with solid systems that say, this is exactly what we do. And those of us in those spaces are having a difficult time trying to present. Because internally, we may say, yes or no, but what we look like community facing is that we're still that educational institution. We have curriculum that is coming down the pipe through the state. Maybe we need another year and really a concerted effort that comes from the top that says, this is what we're prioritizing, and some accountability about it before we get rid of it. I almost think it's like, you don't quit a job until you have another job. And I feel like it'll just start a culture of, if we don't have this assessment, then there's no accountability anywhere. So even if it's not irate, whatever it is, needs to be mandated that everybody is doing it. So there's some expectation, because if not, we have vilified certain groups of students that if we're not really providing them with what we say they are, we can't really say what they know or they don't know. If you haven't taught me, then you can't talk about it. And we're in a situation now where we're making statements that we are not necessarily able to back up, and it's concerning. So I just want to say that, and I'm.
Thank you. You want to share anything else?
No, I just, I agree with everything you said. I think that we have so many options, sometimes because of the options, we tend to disintegrate more the data than we're bringing it in, right? Like, everybody's kind of doing their own thing. So I agree, there needs to be something across the board where we can have comparison, but really look it out. And I think we had this conversation the other day when I said, hey, is not testing students for a year gonna make the big difference? We already know how bad we're doing, right? Like, does it get, like, in the data, because it's not a resemblance, we heard Guthrie say, our students are not there, so where do we put our focus in? Really, how do we now have systems in place to be able to support the testing, the information that we're giving versus testing now just to test them, knowing that we're not getting the correct information. So it's like, why do we have this tool if we're not using it to its capacity? And because we're not implementing it the way that we should be. So I am okay with, getting rid of that and, figuring it out.
Any last thoughts?
I have plans.
I'm not a voter, but it's pretty much, it sounds like it's a yes or no. Is there any middle ground? I know there was a
No.
request to like.
Now, the board ultimately makes a
Not
decision.
anymore.
I mean, going through this kind of system, like I said, I think that like, I already had a mindset, right? I mean, I think that, this ultimately stands for not having a literacy curriculum that every site has, right? I mean, I think that's the ultimate problem, but we're not gonna fix that overnight because we don't have the money, right? So, not yet. Hopefully we will soon, and then this problem will be solved, because then we won't need an additional tool, right? Or like we can just use what should be used, like we're using in math. But I think that there are internal things that we could use, right? So I don't think it's about elimination of testing. Like, I think that I wish that we could use to eliminate 5 more tools, honestly, right? Like, we're, even without this, we already have a lot of testing happening. So, listen, I'm just one voice, but I just think that, whatever, well, you already heard. Francie, go ahead.
For those that haven't met me, I'm Francie Cananiac. I've been here since before most of you were born, and I've had these conversations before. I manage the Clever platform where children go to take notes. So things I just want you to think about. I don't want you to come back and ask Superintendent Cotton in August for data. Because you know it's gonna happen. It might not be the two of you, but it'll be somebody on the board that asks for data. And the data is gonna be living in a whole lot of different places. Because they've been trying, IT has been trying to build a data warehouse forever. And I think what Kim's question was, maybe, is the people that aren't here anymore are the ones that take the data from Desmos and Eureka Math and put it somewhere where it can be easily organized and presentations can be made to the board. That's not going to happen. And so Kim can't do that work and do all her other jobs. And when you ask Superintendent Cotton for a presentation, it's gonna be really hard. It's gonna take a lot of time from a lot of people. So I'm just throwing it out there as food for thought.
So don't ask for data. That's what I got.
87. House Bill 87 says less data to be distributed. It's in the House.
Okay, well, Francie, don't worry. There are plenty of things I'm gonna request from Superintendent Cotton, I guess, so. Yeah. No, I mean, I think point well taken. Point well taken. We're gonna have to figure it out.
Well, the data is gonna need to come from the source that it should come from, which is CalPADS. That's the source that's at the state level, that's what the county, that the state uses. And that's what we should be using, because that's a prime source that we're utilizing. And if this is what this program will entail, that means that will be encumbered into that one program for state reporting.
Okay, let's move to, Renaissance Learning.
You gonna vote on this one or no?
Oh, sure. Our labor groups, could you please, vote? Thank you. Eliminate. Okay. So unanimous elimination.
This is not working for me.
So first unanimous elimination, by the way. You should join the guy, think about it. Just kidding.
Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, we're on a roll now. Can I move us along?
please.
College Board. So College Board is a contract that is, and it's an open PO. It's about $200,000. It provides our students access to be able to take the AP test through College Board to be able to pass and get additional credit. The assessment fee is paid for every single student one time, but all of the tests are covered for our students who qualify under socioeconomically disadvantaged. And it is covered centrally both through LCAP and Title IV.
Thank you. Any questions? Did we not reduce this contract last year?
We actually increased it because with the elimination of IB at Pinole Valley High School, now those students take AP classes, and so we had to increase by about $50,000, our contract in order to make sure that we could, meet the demand there as well.
Right. Okay, any discussion? Christine?
The only thing is, we're paying for testing kids, so that's a positive thing. The larger question, which is not part of this necessarily, is where AP courses are across the secondary sites with more AP options available to them.
Okay, any other discussions? Okay, superintendent?
We absolutely need to maintain all forward to provide AP access across our secondary sites.
Okay. President, are you, oh, sorry, labor, let's vote. Keep, okay. I'm okay keeping it, are you okay keeping? Okay, let's move to the next one.
Right, then we're gonna move on. We've already talked about curriculum associates, the $198,000. We are recommending the elimination of that. It is the professional development component of iReady. We also touched on EduClimber. As a district, we do recommend the elimination and the utilization of the county resource should our superintendent decide to do that, or not, if you want to vote on that, or whether you want to have wider discussion.
For the curriculum associate specifically?
For the Renaissance, I think curriculum
sorry,
associates, we already said we're not
Yeah.
continuing.
Can't see the board in a computer guide. Where are the EduClimber from?
So EduClimber, I can speak to it. EduClimber is a tool that I want to say has been utilized, and correct me if I'm wrong, for about 3 years. A pilot year was 1 year.
It's actually been 6 years,
Okay.
with the pilot year and
Yes.
continuing on since that. I'll put my IT hat.
Thank you.
On my IT hat on there. It came in under, Morgan
Yes,
and Matthews, who's been gone for a little bit, and,
thank you.
the program came in a while ago, was utilized very well. Then Morgan and Julie both left the district. Morgan's position was eliminated, and then, Julie left the district a year afterwards. And then there was a person in the position for, a while that with the changes in cuts, it just didn't get utilized as much as it should have. It's been being built out, again. It encompasses, attendance, curriculum, grading, actually can do surveys. It does, communication for, attendance recovery, and, for the SARB team, it has a lot in that area also. So that's my biggest question also is eliminating this program. How will the county's program with SARB and bringing that piece into it, to, LaShante's group, basically, into the, attendance recovery and retention.
It's not my understanding that we utilize the platform for attendance recovery and documentation of that, so I might be mistaken on that. For the data integration EduClimber itself, I think having been part of the pilot, the basic programming that we have does bring together all of the attendance, all of the suspension, all of the academic data into one platform. However, some of the features that we got excited about around tracking of interventions and SST notes were additional costs, so we weren't able to leverage those. I know that there's been a high level of investment and time, but into trying to make it work. But when we pull the usability data and how much it's actually being used, because we've lost some of those champions that kind of were our front leaders, we've seen a significant lack of usage of the tool. And so because of that, and because of this opportunity that we've had to get a tool that will be supported structurally and financially by the county, is why, you know, as a district, we're recommending that we move away from a tool that we're not using and paying for.
So, okay, you guys are actually recommending to eliminate this one?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions? Kim?
So where would that person go that it was hired to in December to specifically, November, December to specifically support this
The
program?
data analyst?
Mhm.
The data analyst role, part of it is supporting this, but then now that person would support the data use and you know, the infrastructure for the district. So not software specific, but just district wide, and maybe can be the next new champion of this other tool.
And where will the SARB and the attendance portion go?
I will ask LaShante, but I am not aware that any SARB or attendance data relies on this.
Specific reports have been built directly into this program. That's why I'm being specific to this.
Yeah.
For school sites and SARB to use, to utilize. So it's interesting. Okay.
I can text LaShante and call her. Obviously, that's somebody else's department, but just, oh, she's on Zoom. Perfect. LaShante. Oh, she's got her hand up. Good.
I'm just curious, because will
Her
this be
ears must have
another
been
tool
burning.
being asked by that department to be bought
Fair.
to do this?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yes, so we utilize A2A was cut by the contract committee 2 or 3 school years ago. And so we utilize EduClimber to get our attendance data from in conjunction with PowerSchool. Our sites are better able to see like the holistic view at the SARB meetings of attendance for a particular student through the EduClimber attendance portal. So that is what we utilize to see kind of day to day, month to month, week to week. And we were building some things out in EduClimber. So that's how we've been utilizing it.
Without it, LaShante, what would you use?
We would go back to the drawing board and figure it out again through PowerSchool. We would have to figure it out. We would have to use PowerSchool.
Or maybe we could consider A2A again.
Another $100 and something thousand program.
99,000, I think.
Yeah, we would have to consider what is the attendance monitoring kind of tool that will be used, just attendance specific. Yes.
Why couldn't we use PowerSchool?
Did you hear that, LaShante?
So PowerSchool, you said, I'm sorry, Trustee Gonzalez, what did you say?
I just asked why we couldn't use PowerSchool.
But we don't have PA to do it anymore.
Yeah, so the programmer that was once programming PowerSchool and helping us to grab and basically quantify all of our attendance mandatory notifications that need to go to families, and that position is no longer there. And so we have not been able to utilize PowerSchool in the way in which we need to use it in order to specifically customize it for attendance. And so right now, our truancy technicians, we do pull from PowerSchool bi-weekly, but it does take hours of work to get us the reports to get to the school sites. And then specifically when we're at SARB, we have utilized EduClimber because it gives you the attendance at a glance view of specific students, but we have not been able to program PowerSchool in the way that we need to have it programmed in order to be impactful. One, in again, the mandatory attendance notifications, but 2, in the attendance reports. And by law, once a student reaches 3 truancy events, we have to give notifications to families. And so this has been a systemic issue that we have been trying to solve for the last couple of years.
I will also name that this new tool that the county is supporting us with integrates attendance as well. And in all fairness, Shante has not gotten a chance to look at it.
Got it.
It would be part of the team to explore it.
Okay. Okay, any last questions? Okay, any last comments? Okay, so it sounds like it's the district's recommendation to eliminate. You're saying. Okay.
No, yes.
Yeah, right.
In a transition period would be great. But that is exceeding my contract.
Right. Okay, labor, go ahead and vote. Eliminate. Neutral. Kim? Neutral.
You don't have a plan, a true plan, so I disagree.
In principle, yes, but if there was some.
As a worker, I don't understand where the work is going to go. I mean, you're looking at everything that the board and the state and everybody is gonna want from all the other contracts that we're looking at. We're saying, oh, we'll get the data from the tools that we have. Well, we've eliminated the people that are going to give us those options. So how are we gonna do those tools? It's all coming back to, we're looking at bringing credentialed people back, but we have not commented on bringing classified people back. And the board has fought for SCOWs who utilize these tools that we're eliminating. So I'm really conflicted on how people are gonna do their work without frustration.
Might I propose the possibility of having the wider team meet with the county and the superintendent to have the presentation that Sanji and I had, so that they can really truly understand that framework of what it can provide, because to have both is duplicative. And so I wonder if maybe we don't yet have the information for everyone to feel confident.
I've reached out there to the superintendent to say that we need a different type of a training and support in adopted. But again, it's a new resource. A specific plan is needed that impacts staffing and the people to do the work. That we are looking at that piece, but I'm concerned that we are eliminating the infrastructure that is currently in place before the next kind of phase is happening. And I think that that is dangerous work. We are a school district and we're about the business of serving our students. Part of that is around knowing how they're doing and being able to use information to best serve and support them. And so I think this is in haste in some ways, as there's gotta be some time to do the planning around it. And I worry that we're not giving ourselves that opportunity.
The only pushbacks that we're hearing though, that the people who utilize our tools were eliminated, so keeping the tools, but not the people who will give us the data with the tools. Seems like,
I still have a team that is working on. Oh.
I mean, we've heard many times, we eliminated the team this year. So why would you keep the tool if you can't keep the?
We have one person that is supporting this tool at this point with the director of the department. But that's the person that's doing it because we had to learn, and that was really silly is that I've had that person going out to school sites and training principals and communicating and trying to work with a tool with these schools, consistently for the last 3 months. So.
But like everything we're doing right now, we're taking a risk. But the county will solve this problem for us. Let's hope that this tool does what they're claiming that it does. Yeah, let's hope for the best there. Well, President, I recommend that we eliminate it.
I agree.
Okay, we'll eliminate it. Let's move to the next one.
Okay, so now we get to move into some of our department ones. So I can pass this one on to Sanji for our DK. For our community playthings.
This has to do with our expansion, I believe. To ensure that we have, pulling blank, I'm sorry, that we have, thank you, adequate, maybe, that we have classroom supplies, that support our foundational skills in each of the new, classrooms. I cannot go into too much more detail. Allison, our coordinator, has really been spearheading this portion. But we've been trying to align our classrooms where they are more aligned with our new foundational skills. So that you don't see TK classrooms that look like what we had when in its inception, which was sort of like in preparation for a very structured kindergarten, that our foundational skills revolve more around playful activities that are more project-based. So we're trying to match our classrooms. So they should look much more 21st century foundational skills as opposed to what they were looking like before. So all of this is a part of that.
Absolutely. And like Sanji said, so this is really specifically resources that are centered on making sure that our classrooms in TK are set up sustainably. So these tools that are utilized, or these toys essentially is what they are, they're life-size wooden based materials that oftentimes are like play kitchens, or they're like outdoor blocks that students can really interact with, because we know the skills that our students are learning in TK are setting them up foundationally for being kindergarten ready. And we do a lot of play-based learning in TK. And so we need to make sure that we use those TK expansion dollars to have the appropriate resources in every classroom.
Okay, I'm sorry, and this is grant, this is a grant?
This is a TK expansion. Yeah.
Got it, okay.
And as we add TK classrooms so specifically this order was for the new, I want to say it was 13 classrooms that we opened up this year. And so Sanji and Allison together, as we add TK classrooms, we'll both audit and add resources, if they're broken or if they need to be replenished, but utilizing this very specific TK expansion dollars.
And we're adding 7 new teacher classes next year.
Yeah. So we're gonna order more.
Okay, any additional questions? Okay, any comments from anybody? Okay, superintendent.
We absolutely need instructional materials to support our new TK classrooms.
Yeah.
Okay, Labor, would you vote? Thank you, WCAA. Yes, okay. Yep, we'll retain it, okay, gonna move to the next one.
So would you like to do the seal one?
Sure.
Thank you.
Will be year 3, deal, which is our school lounge immersion, professional development and support and contract. Originally it's for 3 schools. In that process, you focus on creating a model for DLI. Next year, we will achieve that model at Washington Elementary. So it's a pivot year in terms of having a location where other teachers at DLI schools can visit and see the full SEAL model in action. So that's the portion. SEAL's not only PD, it supports with integrated curriculum, considering that we do not have a perfect Spanish, English integrated model, and coaching, which is also vital considering, well, there are none or very little coaching, coaches currently in the district. So those are huge reasons why, we have that. It's also available to, administrators and IASMS. So it creates a pipeline. Lastly, it's our partner. We have a direct link to any teachers who are interested, I'm not sure if they can hear me now, in receiving their B-cladding entering in DLI, a paid for credentialing program through that SEAL program, as most they know, can be fulfilled in DLI schools, not only in Washington, but all schools.
Okay. Any questions? Melanie wonders how many teachers are taking advantage of,
Well, right
partnership?
now, it was 4 outside teachers at Grant and at Stewart. They've completed their training. However, we weren't able to grow those programs in those particular schools. We were only able to grow out the program at Washington when, with the commitment of teachers. It was an option for teachers who opted in to the SEAL training. It is a very rigorous, they call it GLAD on steroids for a reason.
Yeah.
So it is kind of top notch PD services in the state. Stewart has over 20 teachers, so right now we're about 30 teachers, which is a pretty good group of teachers being released.
And I think there was only like a handful left at Washington that hadn't done the whole
Correct,
series.
so next year it will be a fully trained school site. One of those teachers, is also receiving the coaching model, so potentially long-term, this is a long-term plan. Have to move away from the SEAL contract. We have a trained, fully coached person to continue this model in the district.
Okay.
If and when.
Any additional questions? Kim?
I just have a quick question. Is this is all dual language? Why are we focusing on a school site that has historically not been able to fulfill this? The enrollment for dual language?
I Washington, I believe.
No, at
Stewart.
Stewart.
Oh, at Stewart. So 3 years.
Washington, yeah, not,
So that was year 3. So, and at that time, actually, that teacher moved schools, but initially those teachers had the full fights in year 1. Some of those teachers are still at Grant, for example, down the division. But now the majority of those same teachers are at Washington. However, the essential portion there is, if any teacher would be interested in receiving SEAL training, then ideally we can bring the SEAL training here at our district versus going to an outside district to look at a SEAL model elsewhere, which would reduce the cost. But in terms of current folks, currently there are no Stewart teacher trainees anymore.
It was already involved. Okay, any comments?
This is on expiring dollars, so we're keeping it really back. Or time.
Can't hear you, John.
This is on expiring dollars. This is on educator effectiveness,
Yeah.
which is not way, so we're keeping this.
It's everything is
It's
flexible.
almost.
Title 2, you said maybe? Title 2 or 3? So,
Title 2 potentially, Title 1 or LCAP. We will prioritize putting that on title.
Got it. Okay, superintendent?
I support maintaining this work and continuing it. But looking for ideally putting this work on title dollars.
Yep.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Labor, how do we feel? Keep. Eliminate? Neutral?
You know, it's a lot of money for something that's optional. There's no guarantee a lot of program. Like. Beautiful part. I wanna guarantee that they have to stay in this district. We're putting a lot of money into it for, and they leave, if he just said that they leave, so. I feel like that's the selling point in terms of program, our underlying a lot of our discussion is how do we kind of bring forth the best aspects, like what are the bright spots in WCCUSD, and one of those bright spots is that we have these dual language immersion programs, whether it's Spanish or Mandarin. Seems like if you're going to work at that site, or a site that has an immersion program, that part of the requirement be, you know, getting, so I'm neutral on it. I think it's great if people are gonna do it, I just don't think it should be optional, like, that's weird. Especially if it's gonna expire funds and it's going to land somewhere else, which could potentially impact the ability of the teacher to provide a different service through those private office. We have a role.
And my argument would be in order to create a sustainable model, that we have very minimum finish a model school in order to be able to provide. We wouldn't continue with such a big extensive contract once we have a model school and a trade coach.
Okay, I see, keep. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, keep. Let's move to instructional partners.
Yeah, so Instruction Partners is a contract that we've had in this year to be able to support the capacity building around our executive directors to support classroom observations as well as some of our directors, and particularly with an emphasis around math. And so supporting the utilization of the instructional practice guides, the instructional practice guide for ELA and math as principals observed during learning walks. It's on expiring funds, and both of our our executive directors as well as our directors and coordinators have participated in walks. And so depending on the continuation of that, the utilization of that resource, our superintendent and our new associate superintendent can decide whether it's a contract that they want to continue with Instruction Partners. Otherwise, since it's on expiring funds, likely we've built the capacity enough that this does not need to continue. There are some school sites that partner with Instruction Partners through the Chamberlain Education Foundation, and our superintendent was able to secure some new positions at some school sites to support instructional math specialists that can also continue this work. And then through this partnership, we also really emphasize the implementation of our math teacher leaders at every elementary school who are also benefiting from this work.
And principals.
And principals, correct.
Okay, questions?
No questions. Comments, yeah, but no questions.
Okay, let's move to comments. Go ahead, Christine.
The IPG is a walk. Correct. And in representing WCTA, we have identified site leaders. We have identified site leaders in the hopes that they are in possession of the skills necessary to conduct classroom walkthroughs, observations, and evaluate the level, quality of instruction that is happening, and then put in place plans of support if necessary. It felt as if this additional entity was evaluatory in nature. That the folks who were placed here were also evaluating the work of the executive directors, the supporting principals, and evaluating the work of the principal, which is not the work of a consultant.
And so I think it sends a message that what is happening at the site or that the individuals at the sites are not in possession of the knowledge to run the site. It was a lot of money. It was not the initiative of the current superintendent or a member of her cabinet, something that she's inherited. I don't know that it goes towards engendering a more trusting relationship between our administrators and our teaching and learning department when we're kind of saying, you need to have somebody else. Like we're not doing the work in-house, which is what the purpose of the principal meetings are. We've been moving in that direction. I want to acknowledge that. To do the things that we need to do at the site. Just felt counterproductive in a lot of ways.
Thank you. Any additional thoughts? Superintendent?
This is work that is sitting with in educator effectiveness. I do think that we will need to really think through what our next steps will be around this type of work. I think I would be comfortable letting it go, but knowing that we may be looking at another partnership to support us with a particular type of expertise to be able to support the district as we move forward. But at this point, I would be comfortable letting this go. Again, it is not a cost savings because it is on funds that are sunsetting.
Okay, labor, let's vote. Eliminate. Teamster Special is still on there?
I'm still here.
Hi, how will you, everybody voted to eliminate? How do you vote? You did, okay. Thank you, sorry, my computer died. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm comfortable with that too. Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll eliminate it. But this one's not cost savings.
But yay, we're moving through.
Yeah.
Okay, so Great Minds is, our Eureka Mount Square curriculum, and so this is a contract to support the, training of our school, educators, including principals and teachers around utilizing the curriculum. It is, likely we're going to need elements of it for our new teachers coming in. And so depending on how many new teachers we hire, we are likely going to need to have a small, additional training for those incoming educators. But we have been able to, train about 85 to 90% of our teachers who are currently utilizing the curriculum this year, and over 90% of our principals.
Since it's already been in place and we've trained so many people, could we just not have maybe some teacher leads train the new teachers?
We certainly could do that, and I think that's a lot to ask of other educators to invest in that. And so I think it is helpful to depending on how many teachers it is, to do both, have a mentor teacher really support you to utilize the curriculum day to day, and to also have a dedicated professional development that helps you break down the curriculum, so. But that would be based on how many teachers we end up having to hire in the fall, so depending on the size of, the support needed, we might be able to handle it in-house, or the department can decide what the need will be.
Christine?
I think the training absolutely is beneficial when you can get it, but I also, which does not have to be tied to this particular contract, but I think capitalizing on something you said and that Isaú even brought up, like a trainer model, because a one-time training is not going to get it. As one of the early adopters of Eureka, it is a very, there's a lot of work that goes into the implementation of this particular tool. right? Because the teacher isn't the teacher. So there's a lot of work that goes into it, and I do think people need support around it. I thought at one point in time, we had math teacher leaders. Did I imagine that? Okay,
We
so.
have this year.
So they should be tied to providing support around instruction, not necessarily to a particular curriculum, yes?
That's what they're tied to do, to
Okay.
support math instruction.
To support math instruction. Okay, so I think if we have that, and then if we can have like regularly scheduled. I know that there've been some, and I think some of those have been online. I think in-person trainings actually are better most times than virtual. But that's above my pay grade currently. I think we just need to, I just think there needs to be something in place for ongoing, but it doesn't necessarily have to be this.
Yeah. And I will say that most of our trainings were in person, across, in fact, the summer at almost half of our elementary school sites. We do have pizza and planning that continues to support through Mark Lavaco. That's been, it's a more informal place that teachers can do some co-planning. But we've had to use some, virtual trainings as well, for those teachers that weren't able to make it in person. So I agree that leveraging both our internal capacity as well as, teachers do sometimes need the support of sitting down with someone. So I would hate to see the expectation be that you just learned from a colleague because, sometimes people need different levels of support.
Mm.
However, at this time, there's no contract being proposed yet. It would be based on the need that arises next year in the fall.
I think it would be based on the need, the number of folks who we hire, as well as what happens with the PD grant that's coming. So that is something that could be utilized to support this type of work without being allowable use.
Okay. Well, it doesn't sound like we actually even need to vote. This is just being eliminated anyway, so if it's okay, we're ready. Let's move on to the next one.
All right, so the next one is through Cal State University East Bay. It is for our Mesa College Prep program. It's a contract that's about $36,000. This provides our educators with both the curriculum and support to be able to run our extensive Mesa student programs across the district, many of whom you've seen nationally recognized for our students. And so this covers both the mentorship that our educators receive. I believe it is 9 teachers. It did used to be in kind provided by Cal State East Bay, but their funds ran out. And so we've been supporting the small contract to continue the programming that our students, I checked in with John in Milwaukee. He thinks several hundred students benefit from these programs across the district. So it's both educator and student facing.
Mm. Okay.
So we are hoping and recommending that this continue.
Any questions?
Where are there are 9 people, where are they?
If you scroll down, Jeff, it should list the schools there. Or up maybe. No, down, you're right. Oh, right there. Dianza, Hercules, Middle College, Pinole, Richmond, and Vista.
Kennedy's not there. And neither is Greenwood.
Yeah, so it does depend on the educator, right? Choosing, it is an add-on and it does have a stipend that's associated, about $3,000, I believe, is per educator. So certainly if there was, there's an open invitation. So if there's an educator that would like to do it at any additional high school, they're able to opt in, and then they just adjust our pricing based on the stipend.
Does the principal opt in or a teacher?
It's a teacher. It's a teacher who runs the after-school club. I guess the principal could do it if they wanted to
No,
as
I
well,
mean,
but.
like, I didn't think of an awareness type of thing, like, it's.
How would everybody know?
That's available.
The communication and advertising needs to be done better to make sure that all
My understanding
secondary
is that
sites
it's,
know about it then.
I asked Sherry, and she said it's been in the district for
Oh,
over 20 years, so.
so maybe we
But
don't
yes,
have-
maybe there's a better,
it started in middle
I didn't
school.
know about it either, so I did lots of research on it
Have
today,
that
so.
Better like
Crespi.
some of us, if we grew up in the Bay Area, South Mesa as an option, right? Those of us who, and it was like Cal Berkeley at the time, so, I think if we could include, because we've talked a lot about perception, and, what is the perception of Kennedy? What is the perception of Greenwood? I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're including these schools, particularly, as I've heard a lot last week, board meeting, where we have the majority of our Black and brown kids, that they get access. So that's just a comment of what the program is.
If you were in it, you assume everybody knows, right? And if you're not, then you don't even
have
know
no
what to
idea.
ask. Yeah.
So like, I didn't know how serious this was. I don't want to go off on a tangent.
And the program itself is supposed to support, students of color.
Got one more.
It's disenfranchised.
I know, we want to go through this tab, but it sounds like, should this district want to keep this contract, it might get bigger if we add more schools, and certainly I'll make sure that there's awareness everywhere that all schools can opt in, certainly, and we'd love that.
Jeff, just confirming that this, Center 4 funding, that is not changing, that would
It's
be.
not changing as long as the White House doesn't change anything.
Oh,
Well, then you go and say that.
I mean, that's what it's been. But no, it's ongoing.
And we haven't received any notification that
We are assuming it's moving
funding will
forward.
change. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to a vote. Oh, wait, yes, you're recommending, obviously.
Yes.
Vote, yes, okay, yes, for me. Okay, let's move to our last one. Well, yes, with the caveat that we
As long as they want to do it, yes.
advertise for them to do it, yeah.
Can we do one more?
One more, come on, let's finish the tab. Saki, would you like to do this one, or would you like me to?
What, let me get back to the staff, what is it?
Apple, iPad?
These are $8 for
Hi, Larry.
It's good.
Bring us home.
Bring us home.
Come on, you got 4 minutes.
No pressure.
Two for a question.
You got 2, come on.
The iPads support our assessment. The DRDP, don't ask me what the acronym stands for, it's education, everything is an acronym. But it is how our preschool and TK teachers assess, and they use it from like the beginning of the year to end, sort of partners with what the room looks like and foundational skills. And it plays a major part. The state says that next year, all schools will use this as the assessment. So it is the assessment tool.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay.
They're all on iPads,
The teachers use them, to track, but students.
but the students aren't using
No,
the
no, no,
iPad.
no,
Okay.
this is per.
Yeah, that's all,
sorry.
that's all I want to make sure. I'm like
We
going,
put those brand new babies on left, we did not. do that.
No. And what I will say is that the iPad, so the DRDP is, where our desired results, developmental profile, I had to look it up too. For our youngest learners, much of that assessment is around taking pictures of evidence of learning, and so and it's done digitally, and so to be able to walk around, to use the iPad to enter data and take pictures is actually really supportive to our teachers, and so we've found really great results in utilizing that tool, and would like to continue to use those expansion dollars to use
And
it.
we need 7 more.
And we need to order.
For the advantage.
where does the 7 more iPads come from?
Same TK funding.
Okay.
Which we have.
This
I'm going, where's that coming from?
Don't worry.
it's the grant funding.
It's an Apple product that isn't supported, so that's why I ordered
Got
it.
it, I see.
We have, the technicians that are Teamsters have to have special certifications in order to support this. So that makes a difference.
Okay, let's move to, sorry, recommendation.
Am I voting too?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right, labor partners, go ahead and vote. Okay. Yes, okay, yay, we got through STEM, thank you. We still have so much to go through, we have one day left.
3 literacy contracts. Just kidding. We can wait.
So we're meeting Tuesday at 9 at Russell. We're meeting back at Pinole.
We're gonna start with IT.
Actually, can we do them last?
Yeah.
No. Yeah, I can tell you why, but I think, yeah.
Or backup panel, you said?
Yes, back up and all. We're gonna starting with ed services.
Great.
And then, we'll figure out, after that, I know we need to finish sped, we have got still quite a few other superintendent office, state and federal. Library services, which is part of ed services, sorry, nutrition, we just need to touch base on how that meeting went with, Teamsters. And then, we had a couple of things that we had tabled that we needed to touch base on. Positive school climate, we had one thing to talk about,
We can vote on that.
and
one, right?
IT, superintendent already mentioned, maintenance, facilities, warehouse. I don't think we need to worry about warehouse, expanded learning, but expanded learning, hopefully, it's 4 pages, but, hopefully it'll be quick. And then risk management and, we already did preschool and risk management, so.
I was on 9 to 12, right?
9 to 12 on Tuesday. I don't know how we're gonna get through it, but we're gonna have to get through it. Because we don't have any more meetings after that.
Voting only, no discussion.
Yeah,
Oh, that's easy.
okay, I'll pass it on to you to finish this.
Really? Wanna go there, Jeff? Come on,
So thank
buddy.
you everyone for this
Public,
wait,
yeah.
day well spent. Our next meeting will be on Tuesday from 9 to 12 at Pinole Valley. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
I made the session.